Let's talk about early Barbies. And by early Barbies, I mean the very first one. I think face-wise she looks quite strange with the sculpted on eyelashes, but I always wanted to repaint one of them. Because I am not going to repaint a doll that is an antique and might be very expensive and difficult to get, I found a cheap version on, you guessed it, AliExpress. Comparing her face sculpt to Barbie's, she does look a lot more like a Bild Billi. So, for everyone who doesn't know, I think it's quite well known by this time. The original doll, the first Barbie was based on, was a German, not really doll. It was a doll, but it wasn't meant for kids. It was a comic strip in a newspaper, or yeah. The Bild does like to call itself a newspaper and thinks that it is very sophisticated, but it's basically just a gossip newspaper thing. And I know I will make everything hate me who loves the Bild, but I think it's the journalism isn't the most unbiased in my opinion. Anyway, they had a comic strip where they had a secretary called Lily, which went through different funny situations, especially for a woman of her time, because they started in the 1950s. She was quite adventurous with her lovers and everything, and quite scandalous, our lovely Lily. And Ruth Handler, the co-founder of Mattel, was on a holiday in Switzerland, and there she saw the Bild Lilli in a display window and brought two with her, and basically face-wise she recreated her one-on-one. The difference is in body and in material, but we are not going too much into that history yet. But I think when I compare her face to the first Barbie, we will have her here, and the Bild Lilli, we will put her here. She does look a lot more like Bild Lilli. And yeah, I wanted to have at least one of those with this face sculpt, with this first face sculpt to repaint. And now that I have her, I think I have to buy two more, because I want to make one that is basically a Bild Lilli, because getting that frickin' doll is nearly as expensive as getting the first Barbie doll. And I'm not sure why. I think I might have seen that at one point, someone doing a repaint of a doll like this and turning her into a Marie Antoinette, but I really want to do a Marie Antoinette style doll with this one, so I will have to purchase two more of her. And because I am not able to get one that is blonde at the moment, I will have to do at least one reroute, and yeah. Anyway, with this first one, I thought, because she has this lovely black hair, and I always thought these look insanely arrogant. And a little bit like they think they are better than everyone else. I might talk myself into an area where I don't want to be, but the way she looks did scream goth to me. Rockabilly gothic, because a lot of goths do look most of the time like they are the biggest B words you can find, while being some of the sweetest persons. Anyway, I made a basic concept for her that I kind of like. It has a lot of, gothic rockabilly elements, and it has some a lot of 50s elements as well. I really wanted to give her some victory rolls, and this is our concept, which we first want to make with a doll like this. But I guess you will see 2 more of them in the near future. Even though I'm not changing too much face-wise, I do want to repaint her, because that is the point of having her. I really want to repaint one of them with the sculpted eyelashes, because I think that is such a strange concept. So, yeah. I'm going to remove her face and stitch together some clothes, and we will talk in between. So, let's start. Well, sadly, I had to notice that when I removed her makeup, the eyebrows weren't very happy to be removed. They stayed with a little bit of a shadow, but what can you do? I then brushed her for the first time, not noticing that there was hair left in the brush. We will come back to that later. I packed her up and sprayed her with MSC. While this was drying and happening multiple times, I started to sew together the dress. I was sure quite quick that I wanted to use something more velvet-esque. The fabric I'm using here is a suede-esque synthetic fabric that was used for a coat I was wearing when I was still smoking, and it has some holes in it from that. So I wasn't willing to wear it anymore, but it makes still very nice doll clothes. The nice thing about using synthetics, especially with dresses like these, you can melt the corners or the hem edges. Hem edges? No. You know what I mean. And that was exactly what I did. I had to be a bit careful because the pencil I was drawing it with is heat erasable, so I had to put it back on sometimes. For the first time in forever, I decided to stitch the dress completely by hand. I'm still hating me for that, but especially with a princess theme, it is far easier for dolls to make a princess theme when it's sewn by hand, even though I prefer sewing with sewing machine. Anyway, after everything was stitched together, I did some binding on the top with satin ribbon, just folding it in half, putting it on there, stitching it in place. And I stitched the rest of it together off camera because you can be lucky that you see a little bit of stitching. Oh yeah, I'm quite allergic against sewing on camera. I'm still not sure why. Her dress is finished, and let's take a second look at the sketch. I did sketch in this kind of fascinator in a spider web shape with red beads similar to the ones I have here and at the necklace. To make that, we are again on an episode of Silence, questionable life decisions, to do things he can't do. Because we are going to make this spider web thing out of wire. And to get it in a shape that is nice, first of all, it will more or less have this size, I guess. Do I have a doll somewhere? I only have one without hair. Yeah, I think it should be at least this size, maybe even bigger. What else do we have here? Oh, you know. Come, get off. That could be a little bit big. So slightly smaller than an MSC cap. Anyway, to get this together, we could either glue it or we could solder it. And to be honest, I used this thing most of my life, or most of the time, only to burn holes into plastic. So far, I only soldered one thing together, which is a chandelier for the dollhouse. I wanted to do a video about it, but I insert a picture here. So that thing was okay to be soldered together by me because it was covered up by beads anyway. This won't be, so I have to try to be a little bit more accurate. That's why I already have a piece of silicone mat, because it shouldn't stick to that when it's soldered. And I can bend my pieces and then glue them onto this with hot glue. So I can combine all of the end pieces or the main strip pieces where we then put the spiderweb along, that have a ring at the end for the beads. I can glue them on with hot glue and then bind them in the center. And I try to only glue them on at the end, so I then can already go on with the webbing. That is the plan of attack. Will it work? No one knows. But I can already heat up the hot glue gun. And yeah. Let's see where this is going. I don't have high hopes. Anyway. Who could have guessed? Soldering is hot. Copper wire leads heat. What happens to the hot glue? It melts! So in the end I had to put some soldering onto each and every little piece and try to get it to work with some clamps and stuff, and obviously I used plastic clips because I don't have anything else, and they did melt a little bit as well, but in the end we were done, and everything that was far too ugly I just covered with the spider that I put on in the end. I soldered the legs, I glued the main body, and with that I think it turned out better than I thought. The points of soldering are visible, but not as huge as I feared they would be, so yay me! Stop her looking like Sid from Toy Story, I started with a repaint. I already did paint the whites of the eye with acrylic paints before I did the spraying of the MSC, and then I mostly used pencils in the first go. I only used soft pastels in the second layer of the repaint, because I was not sure if I really wanted to do a lot of shading on her. She was supposed to be as pale as possible, and yeah, with that I thought, skip the shading. But I did a little bit in the end. I have to say, repainting on these interesting sculpts, or on this interesting sculpt with the sculpted on eyelashes, was quite tricky. I think I changed the eyeliner multiple times until I was happy, and she was tricky. I'm happy with the end result, but gosh, that girl gave me some work. Or she was some work. But yeah, I'm happy with how she turned out, even with the gradient of her eyeshadow. I quite enjoyed that. I would like to know what you think about these, because, yeah, I am surprisingly not very keen on these sculpts. I think they are rather not so pretty, but because of the history behind it, I think it's interesting to at least have repainted one, and as I said, maybe I want to do a Bild Lilli at least. Not sure if I want to do the Marie Antoinette doll with one of them. I kind of want it, I kind of don't want it. I'm 50-50 on it. Let me know what you think about that in the comments down below. Because if a lot of people don't want to watch a doll like this being turned into Marie Antoinette, but more a traditional Barbie, I would be fine with doing that. Anyway, when I was happy with the repaint, I then glued on some lashes onto the lashes. I glued them on the tips of the sculpted, lashes, so the sculpted lashes are now more the eyelid, while we now have the even longer lashes. How often did I say lashes in the last few minutes? Quite often. After her eyes and her nails were varnished, I finally tried to do the victory rolls. My initial idea was to cut the hair, but I had to find out that the hairs aren't glued into the doll, so she lost a lot of it, and in the end I decided to not do anything, just leave her hair open, because I didn't want to lose more of it. I already was quite annoyed because I really wanted to do victory rolls. But yeah, with her already losing so much hair, I was so frustrated that I just put her necklace on, put her into her clothes, and called her done. It's a shame, but I still think she turned out quite nice. Let me know what you think about her in the comments down below. Thank you for spending time with me today. I hope you will have a great time, and we will see us in another video. Until then, bye!